It was 2:17 in the morning on July 14th, and I was behind the wheel of my old Ford pickup, the engine purring like a tired old cat along Route 50, that endless straight line that cuts across the Nevada desert like a scar on the dry skin of the earth. The air rushed in through the half-open window, cold and sharp like an ice blade, raising goosebumps on my bare arms under my worn-out Raiders t-shirt. My hands, cold and sticky with sweat, clung to the cracked leather steering wheel, and the smell of mineral dust and burnt rubber from the day's hot asphalt seeped into the cabin, mixing with the faint stench of stale beer still lingering on my breath. The stars hung low that night, a black veil speckled with indifferent pinpricks of light, and the headlights sliced the darkness into two shaky yellow beams, lighting just enough to see the blurry horizon where the road melted into nothingness. I felt empty, like I always did in those lonely early hours after a night at the Reno casino. Fake laughter with strangers, chips vanishing like smoke, and that dull guilt gnawing at my chest, a knot of doubt that had pulled me away from everything I once believed in. God? I hadn't said that word without a sarcastic snort in years. My father, a devout Baptist from those Kansas plains, had raised me with psalms at the breakfast table, but I'd told him to go to hell along with his dusty Bible when I moved to Las Vegas chasing neon dreams and quick fortunes. Now, with 38 and with a fresh divorce like an open wound, all that was left was this road. This silence, broken only by the constant buzz of invisible crickets in the dry brush on the sides, and the distant echo of a coyote howling somewhere out on a far-off dune. The pickup gave a rattle at 2:23, like it was choking on its own breath. The engine coughed, spat out a cloud of black smoke that smelled like scorched oil and died flat, leaving only the tick of cooling metal and the wind whistling through the thorny cactus lining the road. I switched off the headlights on instinct, and darkness closed in like a heavy blanket, absolute except for the silver glow of the waning moon that washed the desert in a ghostly gray. My heart thumped a little faster, a dull drum in my chest as I stepped out of the vehicle, the ground crunching under my worn-out boots like dry bones. The night's cold bit into my legs, creeping up through the frayed jeans and raised the hair on the back of my neck. "What the hell?" I muttered to myself, my voice a rough croak that got swallowed by the emptiness. I looked around. Nothing. Just sand and long shadows, the smell of arid earth growing stronger with every gust, and that silence. A silence that wasn't empty, but loaded, like the whole desert was holding its breath. I walked a few steps, the phone with no signal in my pocket, my pulse quickening with every crunch of gravel beneath my feet. Disbelief burned in my throat. Why now? Why here in the middle of this nothing where not even ghosts bother to show up? I stopped at the edge of the road, my heart hammering against my ribs, and sat on a flat rock, my hands trembling as I pulled a cigarette from the crumpled pack. I lit it with my grandfather's Zippo, the only keepsake I hadn't pawned, and the click of the flint shattered the silence like a gunshot. I took a deep drag, the warm smoke calming for a second, the knot of fear tangled in my stomach. Nostalgia, that's what it was, an echo of Sundays at the wooden church in Dodge City, the smell of cornbread and the distant choir. Everything I had buried under layers of cynicism and empty bottles. Then I felt it. At 2:31 on the dot, I checked the phone screen even though it was useless, a pressure in the air, like the wind had been cut off all at once. The cigarette froze halfway to my lips. My skin prickled again, but this time it wasn't from the cold, it was something else. An invisible current brushing against my right shoulder, warm and heavy, like the hand of someone approaching without a sound. The desert held an even deeper silence, the crickets gone quiet, the coyote mute, just the faint crackle of my cigarette burning on its own. I turned my head slowly, my heart a thunder in my ears, and there, A few yards away, in the moonlit haze, a silhouette emerged from the dust. A man, or something like it, tall and thin, wrapped in a tattered jacket that fluttered without wind. He walked toward me in soft, almost floating steps, his face hidden in the shadows, but his eyes, they glowed with a gentle light like distant beacons in the fog. Fear pinned me to the rock, my breath coming out in shaky white clouds, the cigarette slipping from my fingers and dying on the ground with a hiss. A hitchhiker? Some desert madman? But there was no sound of footsteps, only that silent advance, and the air filled with a subtle scent, like rain on wet earth, impossible in that dryness. He stopped 2 feet from me, and without a word sat beside me on the rock, the weight of his body sinking it slightly, though I felt neither heat nor cold from him. His presence was solid yet ethereal, like the space between us vibrated with contained electricity. I stayed frozen, my pulse a wild gallop, disbelief mixing with a panic that dried out my mouth. "Who the hell are you?" I managed to whisper, my voice a trembling thread. But he only tilted his head, and in that small gesture I saw his face for the first time. Deep wrinkles like furrows in the sand, brown eyes that reflected the stars, and a smile that wasn't of this world, calm, as if he knew every crack in my broken soul.
The silence stretched, heavy, eternal. Seconds that felt like hours, the desert holding its breath with me. My mind screamed to run, but my legs were made of lead, and in that void, a treacherous peace seeped into my veins, soothing the terror until only a hollow awe remained, like something ancient stirring deep within me. Then he spoke, his voice a low, warm murmur, like the echo of a distant sermon in an empty cathedral. No accent, no rush. "Son, you walked so long in the darkness because you believed the light had abandoned you, but I never left. I only waited for you to look back." The words pierced me like shards of glass, breaking something inside, hot tears rolling down my cheeks before I even felt them coming, a choked sob escaping my throat as the knot of guilt unraveled into a flood of raw remorse, longing for what was lost and an inexplicable love that washed over me like a Pacific wave on a forgotten shore. He didn't move, just placed a hand on my shoulder, light as a feather but burning like a brand. And the world tilted, the wind returned in a whisper, the crickets resumed their chorus, and when I blinked, at 2:37, the rock was empty, only stirred sand where he had been. I started the pickup at 3:05, the engine roaring back to life without explanation, and I drove toward the rosy dawn bleeding over the horizon. But since that night, in the silence of my apartment in Henderson, when the weight of what happened pins me to the mattress, I know now that faith isn't lost. It just hides, waiting for the moment when a voice in the dark reminds you that you were never alone. And that scar, that phrase carved into my bones, whispers to me every sunrise, "Look at me, son, I am here."